In the world of flooring, what looks like a cleaning problem might actually be a manufacturing issue, and vice versa. In this episode of Unscripted, we visit with industry pros to uncover the most common concerns affecting both carpet and hard surface flooring. From installation flaws to post-cleaning complaints, we discuss where things go wrong, how to spot the difference between factory defects and field issues, and what professionals can do to protect themselves and their customers. And to do this, here's our panel of experts, Bill, Mark, and Ray. Bill and Mark are both flooring inspectors. Ray is a cleaning expert. Welcome, gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you.
Jeff.
Let's get right into it and talk about these issues. My first point is let's talk about the common flooring complaints you encounter that are sometimes attributed to cleaning, when in reality they might stem from something else. And Mark, let's start with you on that. When you do an inspection, what are the common things you're seeing out there? Complaints?
Hi, Mark Violand here. I'm in Northeast Ohio, and I've been actually as a cleaner. I got started in 1977 and then moved into doing inspections in 1992 when I became a credentialed IICRC certified senior inspector. And then everything else started unfolding to do inspections. And so today I am a credentialed inspector looking at all different types of floor coverings, including carpet. But my, primary strength, you might say, in the carpet industry. Jeff, mostly it's going to be staining. And now with, the advent of some of these stain-proof carpets, excuse me, I don't mean to say stain-proof, but stain-resistant carpets. With the waterproof carpet that Shaw has now, their Lifeguard, and other manufacturers are coming out with things like that. And that's where you see a lot of the stain warranties from pets, because that has been a game changer in the 2020 with the advent of so many consumers having pets in their home. And they're family now. They aren't just the pet. And they're there. And we need to find out ways to get those stains or spots out of those carpets. Not the odor so much, but that's also something to happen. But it's about stains that are difficult to get out of the carpet, the urine stains, primarily.
Those aren't manufacturing defects. That's the customer's fault.
Well, it's really not a defect, you might say, but it's a warranted issue.
Oh, okay.
Because they have a warranty on urine stains and poo.
Exactly. Ray is our cleaning expert. Ray, you just cleaned the IICRC carpet, headquarters carpet. Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Did they pay you?
I haven't followed up on that, but I'm not expecting a problem.
I know. All joking aside, Ray, when you see issues like Mark just described, the stains from pets, what do you think? Is that a big deal to you as a cleaner?
Well, first of all, I'm Ray Long. I'm the owner of Ray's Co. Incorporated. We're here out of Vegas. I started cleaning in 1998 as a sole proprietor and incorporated in early 2000. Been on several growth patterns over the years, and now I'm a kind of a medium-sized business, I would say, here in Las Vegas, doing all types of flooring, floor cleaning. So as far as urine issues, it's definitely a topic that we're dealing with on a daily basis. As far as the challenges that go with it, it's really just setting the correct expectation with the client, for us, and making sure that, we try to under promise and over deliver.
Yeah, don't say that the other way.
Yes.
So thank you, Ray, and thanks for what you do for the industry. We need cleaners like you out there. We need Mark and Bill to identify issues and others to do the cleaning. Bill, I think you've told me about 100 times you're not a cleaning expert.
That's correct. I am far from it. My name is Bill Zfeld. I'm an inspector out of the Chicagoland area. I've been inspecting for 21 years and did installations for approximately 18 years. Started with carpet, went to laminate, and my company installed all hard surfaces. Yeah, the closest I've come to cleaning or concerns similar to what Mark was stating was we had an inspection where the homeowner had the same kind of carpet. It was stain resistant, stain proof carpet, and his cat was urinating all over the carpet. And he looked at me like, "How does it stop?" I said, "Shoot the cat." It was pretty simple. His wife wouldn't let him do that. But people don't understand that when it says it's urine resistant, that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to stop your cat from doing that. It just means that it's easier to clean.
Ray, let's go to you on this question. When you are called in to clean a carpet or a hard floor, how often do customers try to blame a manufacturer for an issue on the flooring? Do you see that too often?
I would say that issue can come up and is usually resolved because we train on it, on how to respond to these customers that want to say a buckling problem is something that we did. Uh, and maybe a repair that we're trying to make for the customer doesn't come out perfect because of the circumstances with the traffic pattern or whatever. So I'd say the training up front has helped us not have a big issue with it, but it probably comes up once a week in one form or another.
That's often. You mentioned buckling. Let's talk about that. I've seen that many times. Ray, have you ever cleaned a carpet and the buckles show up?
Absolutely.
What do you
Yeah,
tell the customer? What do you tell them?
we usually, that phone call, before I knew how to answer it, uh, does scare you a little bit as a carpet cleaner. But I have learned that typically this is going to happen on I'll say a higher end carpet. I believe, the backing is a lot denser. The carpet itself is a lot heavier. It expands and contracts, and that's how we explain to the client that give it a little bit of dry time here, and if it doesn't return back to normal prior to our cleaning, uh, I'll be out there to take a look at it. But I think
With your power
99% of
stretcher in hand, I'm sure.
yes, yes. 99% of the time it does return. And then on occasion we do have to and we usually tell them it's could be due to an improper stretch during installation.
Hmm.
Or it could be an old carpet that's just slowly loosened over time. So
I've seen that on carpet tile as well, where just a little bit of extra moisture was used during the cleaning process, and the ends of the tiles will curl up just slightly. And in cases like that, I instruct the dealer or whoever, the cleaner, to just give it time, get some turbo fans in there, some dehumidifiers to pull that moisture out, and they will lay flat again. Just give it time. It wasn't you. And how many times have installers, with cases like what Ray is talking about, the buckles that happen on a carpet that is supposed to be glue down installed, and the installer says, "Your cleaning dissolved the glue under the carpet." And of course, I kind of chuckle with that. At the end of the day, Mr. Installer, when you have all that glue on your hands, how do you get that glue off? It's not water.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good points. Anytime there's a problem, you want to figure out where the blame should go, and we've all seen that happen where someone thinks it's someone else's fault when things just happen. But Bill, what about you? How often do you see this buckling issue, and then maybe the bubbles that can happen on a carpet? And when that happens, what do you talk about? How do you explain that?
Your biggest concerns with buckling is how long did it take after installation? That's going to tell me a lot. And I'm also going to peel back a corner of the carpet, and I'm going to check for a condition we call tighter tracks. Because all tack strip, if your wall is right here, all tack strip is the pins are facing the wall. So when you stretch a carpet, you go past it. If you're stretching it tight enough, it's going to come back and it's going to make little lines in the back of the carpet. That's going to tell us if the carpet was properly stretched to a point where okay, it's not that, it's something else. But 90 to 95% of the installations that I look at with buckling, it was never properly stretched. And that created that problem. And it's usually going to rear its ugly head in about 6 months
Mhm.
post installation.
So what about real delamination? How often does that become an
And
issue?
yeah, it's rare. That's probably your other 5 to 10%. It's very rare that that's going to occur. And we've been able to deter. I will literally push the bubble because if you've got delamination, your primary backing is separated. Your secondary backing has separated from your primary backing. And when you actually push the bubble, if the bubble continues to go, sorry, I'm very handsy. If the bubble continues to go, it's more or less due to a lack of stretch. But if the bubble stops and you can't move it, that's pretty consistent with a delamination situation.
Where Mark had spilled his solvent on
Yes,
the carpet.
exactly, exactly. And
Because he was
we've
cleaning
talked
his
to Mark
hands.
1,000 times. Please don't
You know
bring
what?
solvent into your.
But you know what? It's just not solvent. Any olive oil is a solvent.
Hmm.
Right.
You know, spilled
That's a
bottle of
shame.
Italian dressing.
Don't spill that on the carpet.
That's right.
Hmm.
But you know what, Jeff? One of the other things that I see with delamination or lack of dimensional stability seams coming apart because of urine contamination, lack of dimensional stability, and here it comes, powdered carpet deodorizers. The
Yes.
pH of those is causing a breakdown and a weakening of the latex in the back of the carpet.
Which tells me when that happens, poor Ray's going to inherit the problem.
He is.
Ray, sorry.
Yeah.
We apologize, Ray.
You chose this industry, Ray.
Yes, I did.
If you're the last one
No.
that touched it, you own it.
Right. What do you
Yeah.
say, Ray, when that happens? You know it's not your fault. It's something that happened. Olive oil, baking soda, or the carpet deodorizer.
Right.
And you want
Or
to be the
even
good guy here. What do you do, Ray, with that?
yeah, we definitely just give them our best explanation that and we try to go over the products that we used on their carpet, the method, let them know that we're certified firm with the IICRC and our technicians go to school. We're properly executing the job, so it has to be a prior situation. That's kind of how we address it. And I should mention real quick, I wanted to correct. I say it doesn't. The reason why I said problems come up once a week also is because we have a large property management database too, and we're dealing a lot with rent properties, old carpet that shows
Yeah.
delamination,
Yeah.
So I didn't want to make it sound like we have a whole bunch of bad installers in Las Vegas.
No, because they'll find out where you live, and it's
Yeah,
Las Vegas.
yeah.
You end up getting doxxed.
Yeah. Um, okay, so we've talked about carpet for the most part. We talked about delamination, buckling, spilling solvent. I've heard unraveling or loose edges. Any other common issues with carpet? Because I do want to talk about hard floors as well. Anything else we can think of here? What about discoloration or you're on one side of the room looking at the carpet, you go to the other side and it changes. Mark, I know you want to talk about that.
Well, it's not just discolorations because that can happen right before your very eyes. But the other thing is upright vacuums and the damage that they can cause, especially when they're then the handle is upright and that brush bar is still spinning around. And don't get blamed for friction burns or fuzz lines in the carpet that were pre-existing. Especially you see that on low profile olefin carpet because it has a low melt point, on steps, vacuuming steps, and it's just not olefin. Nylon does it too.
Thank you, Mark. Now, Bill, what about power reversal? When you have that pooling look, not or a squiggly line down a hallway, we know that's not a cleaning issue, but I have seen after a carpet has been soiled and then cleaned, all that dirt is gone. Now you see those lines or that pooling effect. How do you
Mm-hmm.
explain that to the customer?
Yeah, good luck with that. That our job, the good thing about our job is we don't have to explain it to the customer. We have to explain it to whoever hired us. So explaining pooling, which is a phenomenon that when I was told during my IICRC training back 21 years ago, that if we could figure out what causes pooling, we could be a bazillionaire because it's just an unexplainable phenomenon, period. There is a white paper out there, I believe, on pooling and gives its best guess as to what causes it to no end. What I wanted to hit up real quick is color variations of the seam. You've got several conditions that could cause that, and one of them is a peaked seam, where you have light coming from the opposite side, hitting that seam, creating a shadow where it gives the appearance of two different colors. But if you look directly over the top of it, it's not. It's the exact same color, and it occurs during the seaming process and the stretching process. I had to explain that to a client this morning, where you've got this the bottom of the carpet is flat, and then you take this. Here's the bottom of your carpet. Now take a piece of seam tape underneath it, and it literally pushes up that little bit to create that very small shadow. And then you stretch it where the carpet itself is pliable. It's going to stretch, except that tape. That's not going to stretch. That's going to keep everything tight, and it's going to raise up that seam, again, ever so slightly. And the tighter you pull your stretcher, the more it's going to peak. It's an odd phenomenon, but it's characteristic of a stretch-in carpet. Then you have other conditions at a seam that could make it look different, is called texture difference. And what texture difference is it's when they're sewing the carpet into the primary backing, if the needles are just slightly different weights, poundage, tension, you will get a fat loop here and a skinny loop here. And that variation will affect the light coming in and give it the appearance of a different carpet. And that's a manufacturing related condition. So that gives us an installation related condition that's characteristic, a manufacturing related condition, and what a client can do to their carpet.
A phenomenon.
Appreciate those details. Okay, let's talk about hard floors for a few minutes. Ray, let's go to you on this. You clean hard floors?
Yes, we do.
Okay. When you go in to clean, it must be super easy to do, no troubles ever.
Yeah.
What are you seeing out there?
No.
What are some common issues or challenges you see with hard floors? And then I want to go to Bill and Mark and talk about those edges that kind of buckle up and different things. Mark, I know you've written about that for Clean Facts. So, Ray, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say the most common things that we see are old or loose grout.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of them. Hollow tiles that might be attributed to either a water damage or improper installation. And then one of the biggies that's come up over the past 5 years, these newfangled grouts that might contain urethane. At least that's my research that I've done on my own. I believe that those grouts, if the installer hasn't cleaned them off, even if it's porcelain or ceramic, they're very, very difficult to get off the tile. Yeah, those are my main issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. And Mark, hard floors, maybe wood. Like, what are you seeing most common as far as the inspections you do, where you go in and it's like, oh my goodness, this is terrible.
I
Anything?
will deflect the wood issue to Bill. Bill's the
Okay.
guy. But what Ray was talking about with ceramic tiles that have lost their bond, that's either movement in the floor, the installation crack, crumbling grout is the first indicator that the installation is tight. There wasn't sufficient expansion spacing. And that grout ray, as you've probably found out, you're going to suck it right up with your with your spray and capture equipment and go, oh no, what happened here? And then crack tiles, oh dear, just stop. Don't move forward. Those are the things that I see with ceramic tile.
Hmm. Yeah, and sometimes replacement's what you got to do, I imagine, on some of
Yeah.
these issues. Bill, the wood guy, huh? So let's hear you.
We're
Yes.
going to
About that.
hit tile first.
All right.
Love you, Ray, but a hollow tile is not moisture related. Otherwise, they wouldn't put tile in pools. And hollow tiles is not a problem per se. It's not a problem until it is. If you'll get a cracked tile, if you've got many situations where an installer may not put tape across the joints of their underlayment, of their cement backer board. When that happens, you're going to get moving in different directions. And when you get a cracked tile that crosses one tile to the other, that inspection is done.
Yes.
It is literally complete. They didn't tape the joints. Have a nice day. And the best way to prove that, the only way to prove that is you're breaking out a hammer.
Yeah.
So you have to break that tile and you'll see that there's no mesh that covered that backer board. So we covered hollow tile. We covered that. As far as hardwood, what do you want to know? It's so much fun.
When it's not supposed to be glossy.
Say that again, Mark.
Or
when it's not supposed to be glossy.
The interesting part is you'll have a client. Let's look at it a little differently. What about when you have half the tiles on a pre-finished floor, which means the manufacturer did the finish and stain? What happens when you have half the floor is glossy, half the tile is matte or satin? That happens. And hardwood is the only product that the manufacturer will blame the installer on their problems if they installed it. So how is an installer to see a varying gloss on a floor when he's down in it? Until he's 3/4, halfway completed, he's not going to see it until the sun hits it just right. And they try to blame installers, and I balk at that. I'm like, no, it's not the installer's fault. There are other conditions where if you have a blatant condition on the hardwood, different story. If it sticks out like a sore thumb, I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now. But if it sticks out like a sore thumb, like different varying sizes or widths of the plank, and you have angled gaps everywhere, yeah, Mr. Installer, you should have seen that. You should have seen that was happening. And yeah, I hope you bring some salt and pepper. You're going to be eating that job. So it just happens. And cupping is a condition that can happen for several different reasons. And I know I'm talking, I want to get Ray and Mark back in there. We can talk about cupping all day long, but 75% of it is going to be the floor that they installed it on top of is wetter than the bottom of the floor they're installing. And that's going to allow the floor to expand. But because it's tight next to each other, the bottom is going to lift and it's going to create a cup. And if they sand that floor before it's done drying, before the bottom of that floor laid flat again, now once it lays flat, you've cut off the edges and now it's going to crown, which is now that looks like the letter M going across the floor, and cupping looks like the letter U going across the floor. It's very interesting situations.
So the solution for most of this is what? Is there a solution, or are these just issues we're going to see and have to deal with? More prep time, more thinking about what you're doing as far as installation.
The
Well, I'm going to
solutions
ask,
are go ahead, Mark.
well, I was going to ask Ray a question. If you do you do cleaning of wood floors, Ray? Do you do cleaning of luxury vinyl? You
Yes.
ever get called in to remove finish that's not supposed to be there? Or see these
Mop and
glossy,
glow.
shiny? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that happens once every few months
Yeah.
that we'll get a call like that. And we have to really talk to the client and let them know that on an LVT floor or a P floor,
Sure.
we can usually help them in that situation, but we don't see a lot of wood floor here
Oh,
in the desert.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
Hard,
desert.
A lot of tile, I
hardly,
would imagine.
yeah, hardly any.
yeah.
So we can usually help them out on the luxury vinyl, but we have to actually go in there with a little bit of a disclaimer, that we can't be responsible. We got to try to get all that stuff off with some heavy, uh, up to and including possibly floor stripper.
Yeah.
So, uh,
Well, gentlemen, we're about out of time. Did we miss any big inspection or cleaning issues that we should mention before we close our episode?
Cleaning of laminate. If you have porosity, it's never going to clean. Porosity is a bazillion little needle holes in your floor
Oh,
that soil gets down in on a laminate, and it might even happen, Ray, on LVP. Those are big
And
conditions.
porcelain
Yeah,
and
yes.
tile, porcelain. Yeah.
So it does happen. So check. Magnification will tell you if it's a bunch of little needle holes.
that's a good idea.
talking about get on your hands and knees and look closely.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
with the magnifier or your cell phone on a magnification mode, where you get down in there and it will literally look like a bazillion little needle holes.
Zits.
Zits,
Like this blackheads.
small zits.
Yeah.
There was one more topic, maybe if you guys got a second
Go
more.
ahead.
I'll get asked this question when we have to recommend a replacement, or a homeowner asks me my opinion about they're buying new carpet, no matter what kind it is. What padding should I use during installation? Um, I think sometimes out there people like the tall, the thick, cushy stuff because it feels good on the feet. But maybe the inspectors could speak to that a little bit about how that breaks down the backing on the carpet. It's not always the best choice, right?
Yeah.
The industry standard, CRI 104, CRI 105, actually, cushion should not exceed 7/16 of an inch.
Hmm.
Now, what density do you want? And that all depends on the cost. What do you want to
Soft. We
spend?
want soft.
Yeah. And soft doesn't work with some carpets because then you have the potential for delamination
Because the
and
carpet's
loss
getting,
of,
yeah.
correct,
Okay.
correct.
But we want soft because we like it.
Yeah,
So get a thick pile.
Yeah. And
when
density.
I was doing installs, I always said spend less on your carpet and more on your pad
Hmm.
to get a good quality padding underneath there.
I
And
can
what
definitely,
cushion would you recommend to somebody, Bill?
Oh boy, you're going back 20 years. 8-pound Rebond is
There you
great for
go.
the client and not so good for the installer because they have heck to pay.
Doesn't the manufacturer suggest the type of pad, the thickness, the weight?
Thickness.
Okay.
Yeah, thickness is about it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because when you have a cheaper pad, it takes less time for walking on the carpet, making that carpet go down to the floor. And once it's down to the floor, now you're just walking on the tufts and you're crushing them, getting them down to a point of nothing left and everything starts matting down. Then we get the call. So hey, go with the cheap pad.
Mhm. I say no because it's not soft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
More often than not, I'm seeing very dense cushions with a plastic scrim on it that makes it waterproof. So nothing will penetrate down into it.
Is that right?
So
Nothing will.
the spill goes through the carpet and then spreads on top of the cushion.
What if there's
And
a little bit of a tear or a hole?
I
Say it again,
literally,
Jeff.
Jeff,
Oh,
just looked at a carpet with that. And the problem with that was they have that plastic scrim on the top, and the backing of carpet is glued together with latex. Well, the latex flakes off the carpet and lays on that scrim. And when
oh,
that happens, it sounds like you are walking on, my client's definition was, it sounds like you are walking on a diaper. It is exactly a plastic diaper. It's exactly what it sounded like. I had no idea what it was for about an hour and a half and then figured it out. Had to actually go to
wow.
another inspector and go, help me. And that's
Yeah.
what it was. It was the combination of the latex being trapped on top of the plastic. And when you walk on it, it's crunching.
Yeah.
It was just the oddest
Oh,
sound.
I'm going to
The
take you
other,
at your word. It's like walking on a diaper because I don't know if I've ever done that.
Yeah, I haven't either.
But
But I've changed diapers for 10 years of my life, so I know the sound.
I hear you. Yeah. Good stuff. Well, gentlemen, we're out of time. There's a lot more issues we could talk about. Maybe we'll do a part two down the road, but this is great information for anyone involved in cleaning, inspections, or just dealing with customers, maybe on the phone. As they get those phone calls, they can help uh, navigate those challenging conversations based on the information you shared today. Thank you all.